Hey, what's up, everyone? This is David Greenspan, and you are listening to Season 3 of the Mindshare Podcast, a proud member of the Industry Syndicate Media Network. Additional podcasts are available at mindshare101.com and on all the major podcast platforms. This week's episode is sponsored by Kit's Keep in Touch Systems. Now, when was the last time you checked out the Kit's Cross-Channel Marketing Suite? This is your full-on marketing toolset, starting with Loop CRM to help keep you organized. The most personalized and effective direct mail newsletters delivering response rates of over 35%. Email newsletters, websites, social media content, our super easy 3-click landing pages, complete with automated action plans, and so much more to help you manage your business, generate more leads and more referrals, and build that mindshare to drive even more sales. You can learn more on my site, mindshare101.com, by clicking on Marketing. Now, as you know, we are on a push to 100 reviews on iTunes, and so I'd like to ask you, if you haven't yet, please take 2 minutes to go to iTunes, rate the show, and leave a review. And we've added an extra incentive for everyone who leaves a review. You will be entered into a draw to win 1 year of free group coaching valued at over $500. It really is that easy. Go over to iTunes, leave a review, rate the show, and let me say thank you in advance. Today's episode is number 156. As an entrepreneur, in her early career, she ran a production and communications company with a client list ranging from luxury safari operators in East and South Africa to film directors and fashion stylists in Toronto and New York, helping her clients create meaningful experiences and lasting impressions. She also worked as an account executive in the communication firm that managed sponsorships, public relations, and live events for arts organizations and corporate clients. She made a fresh start in the real estate industry in 2000 and built a thriving practice in the urban core before moving her life and business to the countryside north of Toronto, where she specialized in marketing and selling rural homes and estates. Joining a franchise, she moved into management and became a broker of record and led a team of professionals to achieve global recognition for their client service and sales performance. She joined the leadership team for the corporately owned brokerage of LePage Canada and soon after became vice president and division manager of Johnston and Daniel, a leading luxury real estate brand. While working in both brands, she continues to focus on raising standards in the real estate industry, as well as helping to implement dynamic technology platforms and support her agents to grow their business, navigate change, and build strong relationships. This week on the show, I am joined by managing broker at LePage Real Estate Services and vice president and division manager of Johnston and Daniel Real Estate, Stefani Konidis. Stefani, welcome to the Mindshare Podcast.
David, you just made my mother very happy reading all of those things.
Well, proud that Mom's watching today and she's tuned in. But seriously, it's quite the accolades. And I mean, I need to ask right off the top here. You ran a productions and I got to read this right. A production and communication company with a client list ranging from luxury safari operators in East and South Africa to film directors, and fashion stylists in Toronto and New York. I mean, this sounds like a whole bunch of exciting roles. Give us some background and tell us more on that, like luxury safaris.
Sure. You know what, Dave? First of all, I just want to say I'm really excited to be here today. We've had some really great conversations, and I'm looking forward to this one. So yes, in my 20s, I decided I can do my own business, and I started a communication company that did production as well.
Okay.
And the great thing about what I did is I really kept my client list quite broad, which meant I could dabble really in different industries. But my focus was always about clear communication and effective communication. And then, of course, with that goes a lot of other elements like the production, where, we would sometimes be doing fashion shows. We would sometimes be doing shooting music videos for the country world, Canadian country music at the time. My luxury clients in East and South Africa were a great bunch of people, and they needed people here doing their communications for them. And I'm dating myself, but I mean, we were just getting into email back then. You know, we were still using faxes to communicate. And so I'd get up, and in the morning, my fax machine would have these papers, you know, that had been faxed however many hours before from Nairobi or depending. So yeah, it's, I was very honored to work with them, a really great bunch of people. And again, that just needed my expertise, which was helping them to communicate in their time zone, in our time zone, but about the different things that they had to offer, details about their upcoming safaris, travel things in that case. So it was fun. It was great. And yes, I got to go.
And I was going to ask you on too. So overall, first of all, you were helping everybody build mind share. I love it. I'm all about that. But seriously, did you do one of those luxury safaris?
Yes, I did a few actually. So yes, I was able to, you know, to effectively talk about something, you had to have some sort of experience with it.
Makes sense.
Right. So yes, I did. I traveled. My first traveling was in Tanzania. But that was pre-luxury. That was me going and backpacking and traveling and doing stuff and getting a sense of what was happening in that part of the world. And then from that, I was able to land these other clients, and they operated out of Nairobi, Kenya. And so I traveled through Kenya, you know, the Masai Mara, the Northern Frontier District. Went to some incredible places. And this company actually at the time, a little bit of name drop, whatever, they were contracted by Disney.
Oh, wow.
At the time. And this is when Disney was they were sending out they call them Imagineering. So yeah. Like an engineering, but imagination. They were sending out for locations of what is the Lion King going to look like and what kind of places.
Wow.
So they were pretty cool operators and knew their stuff very well. So yeah, it was neat to be able to talk about those things. I was obviously very quiet at the time, but now I can say I was a little bit a part of that.
You know, I'll tell you, it's funny, when we were in Disney a number of years ago, I had gone there to go to NAR. So I figured I'm going to double down and take the family to Disney World. And the day that I happened to go to NAR was the day that Jennifer and the kids went to, what's that, the one called, the jungle one or the...
Epcot?
No.
The safari one.
Whatever. Yeah. I don't know why I can't.
Disney Safari or something like
Animal
that.
Animal Kingdom. So it's almost like I'm sort of connecting those two dots now, kind of going like, yeah, because they showed me pictures and stuff, and it was just incredible.
Well, and that's exactly right. Yeah. So they had to go and experience what it was, and then they could sort of create all the other experiences on that side of the world.
That is cool. I'd love to take one of those safaris one day. I think that like one of those luxury safaris, you sleep in like a really cool tent. You know, there's, I mean, lions and tigers and God knows whatever else roaming the jungle there. That is wild, eh?
Really cool. I have some incredible, photographs, pre-digital again, that just always, I'm very grateful for that period in my life. And then, cool. the places I was able to go, Zimbabwe, South Africa. So it was great.
I know about those all from National Geographic. I haven't been out there yet. Well, one day. So tell me this, what led you to switch gears then and get into real estate?
So shortly after that, I was, I had this large sort of client base. I was really involved in Toronto in different, industries. And I met some people, and a friend of mine, actually, he was in the fashion world. And he sort of said to me, you should think about real estate. He goes, I think you'd be really good in sales. I was like, sales, like, okay, what, so I looked it up, and my thinking at the time, actually, David, was, well, I'll eventually probably buy a house. So this might be good education for me to sort of learn. Logic. right, what that means. And if I like it, I'll stick with it. And, 20 plus years later, like here I am. So it was really a bit of I didn't always want to be it, but I will say that walking around Toronto, I lived, in the center core near Yorkville and Rosedale. I was always in those sort of, north of Bloor, south of sort of St. Clair. And for me, I used to walk by these signs on lawns on these really pretty streets like Belmont and Lowther and, these really cool urban streets. And I'd see these signs. I'd be like, oh, that's a nice sign. And now I'm leadership for Johnston and Daniel, which is the sign I remember seeing, which, however many years later. So you just never know where you're going to end up in this crazy world.
Right. Seriously, crazy world it is. So what are you doing on a day-to-day then when it comes to between RLP with Royal LePage, and then with Johnston and Daniel, what's that sort of like, what's your day-to-day look like?
So I manage a branch of the corporate brokerage for Royal LePage Canada, which is in downtown Oakville. But the corporate brokerage in the GTA has about 10 locations. And the two brands, of course. So Royal LePage and Johnston and Daniel. But also in downtown Oakville, we have a small group that also work under the J&D banner. So I manage all of those agents that are running in Oakville under this branch. But I also help my colleagues. Look, we have 3 locations in Oakville in the Royal LePage corporate arm. And then I work with my colleague in the J&D arm in Toronto. And we push forward different programs. We do training. We're always helping our agents with, offers and contracts and regulatory things, of course. I also work in the department, the FinTrack department of our large brokerage. So I help a lot with, just the training on that. And I answer a lot of questions when people have little things that they maybe don't know the answer to. I'm the go-to girl for FinTrack. That's what I'm sort of known for in the brokerage as well. So
a lot of legal and compliance as well.
A lot of legal and compliance, which is really important, actually, right?
That it is, absolutely. And we see,
conversation.
Well, I'm going to jump into that one with you for sure. But I wanted to, because I noticed as well as I was going through this, and I thought global recognition, there was a team of professionals that sort of, as we were reading off the bio there, and I said, that's interesting. What does that mean? Global recognition.
So at the time, I was broker of record of a small franchise that had global locations. So they were literally a global company with franchises dotted around the globe. And we would get together on a yearly basis and we would recognize the efforts of the people, like an awards program, basically. But the team that I was working with at the time, we were small, but we were very mighty because we were working in the sort of countryside of Toronto, north of Toronto. Our price points were really high. So, we were competing against all over really North America. But they were able to sort of get these, we had this great momentum at the time. It was a newer sort of brand in that area. And I had a great team of people and we had a lot of trust in each other. And they got these awards that year, which surprised us as individuals, but as a small brokerage, we did really, really well. And they've gone on to do great things, even though I'm not working with them anymore, but each of them individually and on their own have gone on to do really great things. So it's such a nice feeling to know that I sort of helped. I mean, it's them. Yeah. Supporting them and helping them.
No, listen, but that's again, every interaction we have as we meet somebody, there's something that you can take away. There's some value to be able to take away, something to be able to learn that you can then sort of build upon and keep, taking yourself to that next level. And then, so looking at the whole idea of getting into the brand of Johnston and Daniel as vice president and going through in this, it just seems like this idea of luxury happens to follow you, or maybe you follow it. But as we talk about that, what does it mean to really be a luxury specialist?
So
Because I think there's some misconception around that. Like everybody, I mean, I'd love to sell a $10 million house because of course the commission's huge, but are you that specialist? Like, do you really know that market?
And I think that's the point. You hit the nail on the head, David. And it's one thing to know people that, might own houses like that. It's really fully another to be able to service them with a transaction of that nature. And really what that comes from is, exposure and experience, as well as I think the key with what I'm seeing anyways, the people that are doing very well in that segment, it's their ability to listen. Hugely a part of what, because anyone, like you said, it'd be great to sell a $10 million property, but it's fully another to help someone at that level attain their next step. And I think a big part of what I see people that are doing well in that segment is that they're very good listeners, they're very good at analysis, and they're very good at anticipating the needs. Right? So perhaps they have a little bit more knowledge about the market or a different segment of the market that they can help them into their next, whatever it may be, or get past, whether it's listing or selling a property, but what's the next step for them and helping them anticipate what their needs may be, their changing needs may be. And I talk about that in the luxury space. These aren't people that I need a house. Well, right. You have a house. You want a different house.
It's a big difference, need and want. That's a big difference right there.
Correct. Yeah. And that is a huge part. That's a huge defining element of the luxury space in real estate is that sort of, okay, you have a beautiful home, but what is it that you're making this decision? What's motivating that change or understanding that and taking the time to understand that and then anticipate potentially what they could need for that next. Again, back to it's a want. They want to move, but what do they need to make that happen? And I think digging down and drilling down, it's good questions, but it's very attentive listening. I think that's a big part of it. And then ultimately it's having knowledge, right, of what it is that they could move to, or where they are best to spend in the next iteration of their home or property.
Right. Like I know we've had a few guests on the show over the time and these are folks that like, that is what they do. It's luxury. And when we talk about luxury, again, it's that like uber level. And that's where their focus is. But they've built out a niche over, not days, weeks, or months. We're talking like decades of really specializing in that space. And so they fully understand what it really takes to deal and help somebody who's got that magnitude of dollars to be able to purchase a home of that nature. But again, understanding that these people don't need to. They just want to. And so those homes, it could be second homes, third homes, fourth homes, like this could be vacation properties. There's that level that we need to be dealing with them. So, when we talk about what's it mean, I think you define that really well when we talk about, just listening. I love the definition of that one. So if somebody listening now goes, well, I'd like to get into this. Where's a good starting point for somebody to say, yes, I'd love to be a luxury specialist. Again, I'd love to really start planting my feet in that niche. I heard what you just said there. Where would I start today? Is there any sort of piece of advice you might have for somebody that is either, again, brand new in the business that is deciding I want to go down that road right now, or somebody that's been in the business, that's got their feet wet, they understand what's going on in let's say, the residential real estate world. Now they want to kind of expand that business and take it up to a different level in terms of what they sell. Where would they begin?
I always go back to knowledge, right? Market knowledge, first and foremost. So understanding, really, really being in tune with the market, whether it's the condo market or the detached home market, the new home market, whether it's the build, like so getting a piece of land where people are going to build their dream homes, whether you talked about recreational sort of country properties, vacation properties, knowledge about secondary home ownership, surrounding yourself with lawyers that understand that, accountants that can help with that, financial advisors who can, help the process along with. So it's surrounding yourself, first of all, digging in to the knowledge, but then it's surrounding yourself with other people that are on that same sort of plane, that same sort of moving, that forward momentum into that space, or that are already there, right? Like for me, I started in a downtown boutique real estate company.
I wanted to ask you that. Sorry, forgive me, total interrupt, but that's why I wanted to ask you that. Did you start in luxury?
I did. I started with a firm in downtown Toronto, and they were sort of planted right on Yonge Street. They were known for doing the Rosedales, Annex, Lawrence Park, Forest Hill, Summer Hill, Rathnally. Like that was our sort of stomping ground. And my way of sort of distinguishing myself in that crowd was, first of all, I just sat around and listened and absorbed as much as I could.
Yeah.
And, these were the doyens of Toronto Central, right? And, diamonds dripping off them, like out there selling all of it.
Yep.
I just listened. I listened and I watched and I learned. I was surrounded by greatness. So I just tried to learn from them as much as I could and just offered to help them. And I saw myself as their support role, right? So I was lucky enough to work on several transactions early on. I had a great mentor, and I had early experience in a lot of different kinds of transactions, and decided I would really focus in on a segment of the market that my colleagues didn't necessarily dabble in as much, which was the condo market and the loft market, which was really in an infancy phase in Toronto. Like it wasn't booming. I mean, it was after a while, but I just made a point of, again, learning the market that I was in. So every week I would make sure to go and see at least one or two new buildings that I hadn't been in yet, all across the city. So that if someone asked me, "Oh, Stefani, have you been in that building?" I'd be like, "Yes, it has a great lobby," or, "Yes, but the parking's tricky," or whatever. I would just, I made myself, because I knew I couldn't compete in, getting the Rosedale Mansion listing, like
right.
Yet.
So, okay. So you're not selling it anymore, right?
I'm not. That's right.
Where did you get your first deal from, though? Was it from one of those mentors? Was it in the condo market through doing what you were doing? I think they're brilliant. Like, just go learn, understand what's there, be able to talk about that stuff, diversify a little bit, of course, as you did. Where did that first deal come from?
My first deal was done literally on the hood of a car. Because back then we didn't have Authentisign and DocuSign. And we had a listing with this mentor that I worked with, and I had met someone on a sign call. And we brought the people in, and literally we're working both sides of the deal. And I was working with the buyer, and literally we were writing the deal or the changes to the deal on the hood of a car.
Wow.
Yeah.
Back in the day, huh? I remember when my father was in the business, and I remember the curly Q antennas on the back of the car windshield, like the back windshield of the car.
Oh yeah.
Everybody started carrying around the bag, and then all of a sudden the brick, and then it started to like morph, right? Totally. Right. The pagers with the pockets full of quarters. Remember what a payphone was, right?
And I carried, like, one of the things I would do, someone would be like, "Oh, I'm going away for the weekend." I'd be like, "Okay." And I would literally be carrying around 2 or 3 pagers some weekends with me. And I would be returning the calls, the incoming, like pagers, like little.
I would totally remember, right?
And I mean, I transitioned to a little yellow Nokia phone shortly after that. And I was like the first person in my company to actually get their pages onto a phone.
Go figure. And how technology has morphed, which we'll talk to. I'm wondering, as you were building the business, and we talked about, you were in a communication background, what did you do to communicate, build mind share with people as you were at the onset of your career? So what were some of those first things you were doing off the get-go to really get out there and build it up? And I guess we would parlay that into, what would you share with anybody now who is a little bit newer in the business, who is looking to get their feet under them? And as we approach the end of the year and people are doing business planning and marketing planning and everything else, what kind of things did you do that maybe you would say to other people? And I know different back then than it is right now.
Sorry, David, you cut out for a minute, so maybe just ask that question again, please, if you don't mind.
I was wondering, in terms of building mind share in the communication, what were you doing back then? Which, of course, back then is very different than what we've got available to us now. But what kind of things were you doing then? And what might you suggest that somebody now does to get out there and communicate to people that they are in the business?
So a big part of back then was that sort of network, again, that you put yourself in front of. So I was part of a club and a couple clubs, and I would, do all of that. I was very athletic, so I was playing squash and curling and running and beach volleyball and just lots of fun stuff like that. But then I also, again, I networked with my colleagues. So there was a condo network, and like agents that have been in the business for a while and in the center core will know what I'm talking about. We met downtown at Brookfield Place, actually, where what used to be the Marché. And we would have every other week, we would have a condo network meeting, and agents that were selling condos would get together. So to this day, I'm in touch with some of those agents. And we just have known each other. And I remember in particular, I was given someone's pager for the weekend, and they had a buyer that was interested in a townhouse that came for sale, at the foot of Casa Loma, all those townhomes. So,
oh my God, I remember when those were first there, because my father left me in a car while he went in to show one of those. And I can picture that like that many years ago.
It's such a cool urban neighborhood right there, right? Yeah. And beautiful, like not large townhomes, not little tiny back townhouses. And I remember it because I was like, I would never have anyone looking, but one of my colleagues had someone who was looking, and they flew off somewhere for however long. And so said, can you help them? And I'm like, yeah. So I showed them the unit. They liked the unit. The unit was listed by someone I knew in the condo network. And back then it was in multiple offers. Go figure.
Oh my God, right?
Never happened back then. And they just turned to me. They said, you know what, Stefani, I know you, and I know that I can look you in the eye and know what you're saying.
The internet is not our friend today. Why?
I can hear you though.
Okay, there we go. Good, cool. He froze on me again. I'm like, no, I'm trying to look at my internet connection. Like, what is going on?
So yeah, that was.
I apologize on behalf of the internet.
No, don't worry about that. So that was an example of, again, it wasn't just the people I knew that I was trying to attract in terms of clients, but it was like that trust you build with your colleagues in the industry.
Okay, so tell me that then, when we talk about that, because again, that's when we look at which audience we should be focusing more time and effort on, and we talk about communication. I love that, because again, where did you get it? I'm talking to people. I'm getting together with people. I'm taking part in groups. Which audience should agents be more focused on in terms of growing their business? People they know or people they don't know? And when you look at your agents, where are they getting most of their business from?
My very successful agents, David, are getting referral business.
Yeah.
They're getting, I'm going to say 85% of their business is from past clients, but it's also from colleagues. Right. One of my agents did a deal recently, and the colleague so what's really gone on now in the last little while is people are like, they get a buyer, they're driving wherever the buyer wants to go. I'm going. One of my teams here, they've been in the business for years. They're successful. They got a referral from someone in Mississauga, just because that client was like, you know what? I don't do Oakville, but I know someone who does, and they're excellent. And, my guys took it on and did a great job. And that kind of colleague, so they had gotten business from this colleague in Mississauga for like multiple times over the years. So her comfort was, I'm going to send the business to you. I'll take part of it, but you actually do that really well. So you do that. And that kind of, again, professional networking is, I say that's almost as important as the networking you're doing to get those your clients to refer you. Royal LePage is great for that. I will say they have a lot of opportunity for that to happen. And of course, we're national, right? So that kind of that opportunity comes up often.
Well, look, we say this all the time, is that we know 70 to 90% of an agent's business is driven from their database, period. There is no reason, though, that database should be isolated to simply past clients. We've got to think of past clients. We've got to think of potential clients. We've got to think of friends and family. Oh, but I don't want to deal with my family. That's okay. They may not want to deal with you either, but they may be one of the first people to tell somebody else about you.
Yes.
And then it also includes our COI, our circle of influence. And that could be everybody from our mortgage broker to our hairdresser to, anybody else that we have as part of our team. It could also be those colleagues of ours in this business. And this is where, again, Stephanie, whenever we're doing, and we do a lot of group training, a lot of it virtual stuff, especially in this world we're in today. Now, oftentimes, a lot of people don't turn on their cameras. And I try to really emphasize, look, it's a great time to learn how to leverage video. Your clients are not here. So if you make a mistake, your lighting's bad, the angle's bad, your hair's not right, it's okay. It's a closed environment. Much the same, it's a great way to see and be seen. And that's by your colleagues that are on that call, because the stronger relationship you can build with those people who you may not see or talk to that often, but they happen to be in the same brokerage, or they happen to be in another part of town that you could contra or parlay back and forth on stuff with. You got great opportunities. And referrals come in all shapes and sizes.
Absolutely.
We don't know from where, we don't know from when, we don't know from who. Connect with people, right? Well, that's what it comes down to.
And you knit the, in terms of your 156th podcast, which I'm really grateful to be participating in.
Thank you so much.
How did we meet? We met on an online conference.
Exactly.
Right? It was, everyone was doing it. Everyone's still doing it. Yep. But we met, you and I, our paths crossed when we were on an online conference, and a mutual acquaintance, colleague, friend said, you guys need to talk. And, equals 100 episode 156. So you just don't know where those opportunities are going to come. And I agree with you. Turn on the camera, chat in the chat group, Well,
let's talk technology, the technology side of real estate, because I know that's near and dear for you as well. One of the first people in your brokerage actually have a website. I recall reading about that and hearing about that. What kind of tools are we really suggesting, maybe advising agents should be leveraging today in terms of the real estate business? And again, I want to preface this, as I always do, it is still a people business. And so It's important that we collectively don't discount the value in having that conversation with an individual, the value in getting together with somebody, the value in just doing a one-on-one, even video call, because it's just the two of us.
Right.
I mean, in this context, there's a lot more than just the two of us today, but in that regard, it's still that people biz. But what tech are we telling people that they should really be leveraging or looking out for right now?
So I would say it's twofold. I mean, if you're not out there digitally, if people can't find you on the internet, then do you really exist?
Yeah, it's so true.
Right. And not just do you have a website, but are you active on social, those kinds of things. That's your forward facing, right? So your Instagram, your Facebook, your TikTok, your LinkedIn, all of that, as well as like what we're doing, being involved in digital conversations and online chats and all of that. Your website, but then the other side of it is your system, right? So your CRM.
Love it.
Almost, and that's it's like mic drop, full stop.
Yep, full stop.
How are you running your relationships?
Thank you.
Right? Because we have so many connections now. That has to be systematized.
I'll tell you this. We are, I've actually got a brand new keynote coming out for the new year, which is going to be all about own your audience. When we look at the amount of noise that's coming at us from every single direction, be it, online, offline, whatever it be, there's a ton of noise that every single one of us get hit with every single day. And to think about some of those things, those platforms you've just mentioned, a lot of it, we don't even own the audience on there. We don't own the contact list. And then so it comes back and it really ties. I'm not going to give it all away, but I'm going to say that it ties perfectly in with your CRM and really taking control of that. Because when we look at it, and we do say it's a people business, we have been saying this for years about, agents need to remain relevant, continue to prove your worth. The more you allow technology to take over with electronic signatures and automated action plans and all, the less that people are going to feel they need you as part of it. Whereas when you're there to hold their hand, you're there to reassure them it'll be okay. You're there to clarify a clause, a condition, any of this stuff. You're there to help them. That's something no technology is going to be able to do. They can Google whatever they want. We can Google and YouTube everything we want. The difference is, do we feel comfortable in ourselves, confident in ourselves to be able to pull it off? Or do we want to come work with somebody? So again, we know it's a people business. Now, you touched on CRM, and we know that money is in the follow-up, right? So why do agents struggle so much then, with the tech side, but even more so with this part of the business of like following up with people and actually converting a lot of these new leads or opportunities that are coming through? How do they get better? What do they do? Why are they struggling so much?
Ultimately, that comes down to a sales process, right? Like, as much as we're in the service industry and we have to know so much about legal and our breadth of knowledge is so great in the industry. Like there's so many things that we're called on to know. But, ultimately it's that sort of trust relationship that we build and have to build every day with our clients. And, my clients are my agents, right? And an extension of them is their clients. So much of it is based on that sort of trust, right? And building sort of, I'm going to say, authentic, real reasons to be in touch with people. And that's when it turns into a service business, right? So back to, that underlying what is luxury, it's that anticipating, right? What your clients may need or want to know about or might find helpful. And again, everyone's in a different part of the sales process, we'll call, right? Like you're talking about converting, how do you convert that person that you met from a sign call through the process to closing a deal with them? And how do you juggle, maybe 20 of those relationships that are maybe on your docket for the next 6 months, right? Those deals you think are going to happen in the next 6 months. Everyone's at a different stage, which is why a system is really important and a process. And understanding that, again, it always comes back to understanding where the client's needs are and how you can meet them.
Right.
So it's thinking more like, yes, I'm a salesperson, so all of those touch points are important, but ultimately, how can I service them? Like, how can I bring it forward, their relationship or their motivation or the negotiation, whatever it is, whatever process, wherever they are in the process.
Which again, I'm going to circle back and just try to drive home and say that even in this technology world that we're living in, there's still an aspect of that offline that you really need to do with people to take you and elevate the experience that they're receiving from you. Because ultimately, when we talk referrals, when we talk long-term business and longevity in this business, that's where your referral opportunities come from. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not just leaving it to this one angle or not just doing the bare minimum, but really going above and beyond, which really parlays nicely into this, because as we look at the landscape of the industry now, and I want to go a little bit on higher level stuff with you now, because you and I had a great conversation about this on the phone one day. But how do we raise the level of professionalism in this industry?
I think the only way to do that is to think of yourself as part of the process as a sales professional. And you can't ultimately be tied to an outcome. So whether the outcome is, like, I hate to say it, you can't be tied to the commission check.
You mean I can't just do this all about money?
Yeah.
Like, it can't just be for me and my own self, success.
Yeah.
I got to help others.
It has to be about that. I think ultimately that's the only real answer, mm-hmm. right? Like, your clients have to be first and their needs have to be met. How can I do that every single day? And if you are attached to the process of getting them, again, like I was saying, moving them forward, whatever, then that outcome of, like, I'm going to get paid in 21 days when that closes, it becomes less important in your mindset. And therefore, every action you do is intentional to help your client forward. I think it has to, back to mindset, mm-hmm. it has to be about what the client's needs are.
It's always got to be about them.
It has to be.
Yeah.
It's our fiduciary duty for it to be number one. So just breaking it down from a legal perspective, that's what's expected of us.
Right.
As an industry. And then, the honesty and fairness and all the things that we owe everyone else has to be, again, very intentional, because the outcome has to match what you're providing, the need that you're providing to your client, the service you're providing to the client.
So, okay. So we look at the professionalism on the side of the agent-client relationship. What about the agent to agent? Because we talked about how important it is to have good connections with your colleagues and be able to leverage those relationships. What do we feel about the professionalism when it comes to agent in this industry? How can we raise that?
Well, again, back to, so much of what's expected of us is just really good communication.
Right. I like that.
If we're good communicators, then no one's really left in the dark, right? Everyone's felt their feelings aren't going to be, I got forgotten, or you didn't call me back in time. Or if we just sort of start with that, as I want to be a better communicator in my business, I want to, my colleagues, my clients, my staff, my team members, I want to just get better at that. That is a great goal to becoming a better realtor, a better professional. You could take that even to, like, bigger picture, a better mother, a better wife. Like, if I just was a better communicator, then there wouldn't be ambiguity and there wouldn't be, questionable, motives. Like, it's just, no, this is what's happening. This is how it's going to happen. This is the framework, and then stick with it. Right. So that a big part of that is, of course, our integrity.
Absolutely. You
holding ourselves to task.
Well, this is the thing, but that's it. And communication is so imperative. And when we look at it, I mean, for the amount of questions we've put out there from Mindshare into the sort of real estate ecosystem, asking people straight, what do you want to see more of? What is lacking? And it really always comes down to communication being a driver of that. And look, this could be a lack of communication of, you're the listing agent and you don't call back those people to let them know they didn't win the offer. Let's say, you're talking to your clients and maybe you're not in touch with those buyers or sellers as often as you could be because you feel like there's nothing to report. Well, they may feel like you're not connecting with them. And in the same way, when we talk about communication, it's, we see a lot of agents who are always or often harping on other agents. And I think overall that the level of professionalism on that really brings the industry down a number of notches in terms of what realtors bring to the table. Because now what you're doing is you're going after your colleagues, which is just setting a bad precedent between the two of you. It's putting, you in, not you, Stefani, but the overall, putting you in a bad light because people are looking going, oh, you're a negative individual, or I got to be careful what I say to you because you're going to put it out there and just start talking about it to everybody.
Right.
So there's the good and the bad of the communication. And really the message comes back to that long-term experience for the client, right? What are they seeing from the industry? How are we collectively together, all of us talking to one another to make your client or my client feel like, hey, this has been great. Right. So there's positive communication that has to take place.
There is. And, sadly, some of that has deteriorated.
Big time.
And by no one's fault, no one person's fault. There is, again, sort of big picture, there's a lot of that ambiguity out there overall, right? I look at my parents and they they read something, they believed it. Mm-hmm. Like if it was in the newspaper, then, now they don't have that. Like I look at my daughter and I'm like, you have to be very critical in thought now. Where did that information come from? Right. What's the context? How does that affect you? Like who wrote it and what is their sort of, so making her aware that that's really important, more important almost than what the message is. And again, I'm a communications, student ongoing. And, I always like to think back to my University of Toronto days when I was studying like Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message, right? Where's that message coming from?
Right.
Then I will understand the message better. Even just that, just simplistically, that element itself. And now more than ever, we have to, be aware of that, right?
Oh, I would double down on that in a massive way, especially where we are at right now in the shoes we are all walking in, is that is key because there's a lot of mixed messaging out there. Now, speaking of that, what's your thought on agents who advertise the whole thing of, or maybe a thought, maybe I take that away or opinion away, but maybe the strategy of it all, but like that whole thing of, look at me, I just sold this for over asking. Look at me, I just hit this and, we're making this much money. What's the thoughts around the advertising part of that, the communication channel on that and the way people are building mindshare for their brand?
Well, I think you have to, what you put out there, you're going to get back, right? So, if you're like the megaphone person and I've got the loudest message about I'm being the best, then people are going to hold you to that. So, you might not be that the next deal. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. But I think the key is that you talked about it earlier, consistency, and I think it's important to be boastful in a certain way because we want people to be aware and confident and comfortable with some of our successes. But I would say as an agent, that gets thin fast. You really have to back it up with, long-term strategy, long-term thinking, big picture, marketing plans, unless you're just like, that's, I just think that there has to be some sophistication. That's all. Some sophistication in our messaging. But that being said, if it works and you're making a lot of money and that's your goal, then, but it's certainly not what I think is the most important thing that we can do to service our clients, right? Like our clients want to know that they can trust us and what we're putting out there is, possibly discreet, depending on the client. And, a big reason why some people use certain agents is their discretion.
Right.
Right.
So we bring up the fiduciary duties. We bring up our responsibilities. What about integrity and ethics when we're thinking long term? What should agents be doing then to put their best foot forward? Because again, when we come back to it, we see some nasty stuff online, but more so I think beyond online, even when we talk about integrity and ethics, again, how can people put their best foot forward on a regular?
Well, I think they have to start with making sure that they're clear on their directives. So knowing what is expected of you by your broker, by the brand you represent, by your clients. And if those are all aligned, then it's fairly simple, the path that you have to take, right? In terms of integrity, right? Like if your broker is saying, don't worry, or, oh, whatever, then, that might let you off the hook, so to speak. So I think leadership, honestly, comes into that. And I think, for me, find people that think big and hitch on to them. Because we have a long road in this business. I remember being in a situation, this is years ago, and, I had done a deal with someone, and then however many months later, I'm like, oh my gosh, the property's listed by someone else. He said, that was my client. And it happens. Listen, it
absolutely
happens.
It does. Absolutely.
And that was fine, but it was listed by someone in my office. And I remember going in and seeing it and thinking, that doesn't feel good. And I was sort of irritated, but then I heard this person's voice around the corner in my office saying, but don't tell Stefani.
Oh no.
And I thought, Stefani's right here.
Oh no.
So I walked over to him, it's him.
Yep.
And I said, fine that that's your client, but you and I are going to be colleagues a long time. And that's one deal. It's not worth it. It is not worth it. And he's not in the business anymore. And I am. I don't know. But to me, it was that's one deal. And so if your mind, back to your mindset, if it's transactional, it's very hard to think long-term, right? So those relationships are important, and thinking past the one transaction or the one trade or the one client, and now I can't even remember that client's name. Maybe if I thought hard, I could, but.
Okay, here. So we talk about ethics, we talk about integrity, we talk about professionalism, we've talked about online, we've talked about offline, we've talked about our colleagues and the importance of that. And just wrapping the technology back to the idea of luxury deals and looking at that thing of integrity now and saying, I call them keyboard tough guys, okay? People that will sit behind the keyboard, not be in front of you, and they will tap away and type out anything they want online because, hey, I'm not really there with you, so I'm not worried about what you're going to do or if you're going to punch me in the face or something, right? Maybe taking that a little bit far, but you get what I'm saying, is that people can be extremely mean. And you've said that if you're not really leveraging the online and you're not on the socials and you're not just present, do you really exist? Much the same on the flip side. We got people that are like, oh no, I'm there. And I'm going to tell you every single thing about what I think about every single person out there. When it comes back to luxury and positioning ourselves the right way, what say you about kind of that way of handling situations?
Well, it always has to come back to, the relationship and honoring the relationship. And, I see it too online and I'm like, okay, well, they're right. But does everyone have to say it that way? Like, does everyone have to I actually appreciate the people that put themselves out there like that all the time. And, get a bad rap, a good rap, whatever rap they get. So there's nothing wrong with that, but it does come with that consequence of like, well, I don't know that I would necessarily share something important or discretionary with someone in that situation. And what does that mean for my business? Well, it depends on what kind of business that you're building. At the end of the day, our industry is filled with lots of different characters that have lots of different strengths, right? Back to, what the strengths are of the individuals. And that's okay. But I think what's important is, finding your own voice in all of that, right? Whether it's to remark only on specific topics that you know a lot about, or to sort of become a subject matter expert in a certain element. And again, I mean, it exists in every industry, right? It's not just real estate. We're very vocal and we're very collaborative until we're not. And I think the key is to, just be respectful in whatever you're doing and, leave the other stuff out of it. I mean, we're called to do that by RICO, by our, regulatory body to not speak badly of each other and not be sort of, keyboard warriors in that way. But ultimately, if you're there to be helpful, and your intention is to be helpful and possibly shed some light for other people, then that's a good role. And we need that as well. But ultimately, your resources, are wide in this business. You just have to find those people, those trusted individuals, the governing bodies, the staff, whoever it is. And I always say, just surround yourself with a good network of people. That's, you are who your friends are, right?
Ain't that the truth?
Who you surround yourself with. Maybe not your friends, but like the network that you surround yourself with.
Absolutely. So curious, how do you know it's been a successful day for you?
A successful day for me is when my staff and my agents walk by and they smile and they wave and they say thanks, or they, like, to me, it still comes back to being a good person in the role that I have. So if I can get a smile and a wave from people as they're crossing paths with me, that's a good day. I mean, that's maybe not a very high bar to set, but it's a good day. When my agents have a good day, I have a good day. When my staff has a good day, I have a good day, right? Look, bad days happen, but it's how we recover from them. And if I can be here to help them through a bad day, that's a good day for me.
There it was. You see, there it was. Everybody knows why I asked that question. Everybody is tuned in on regular, smiling right now, going, okay, Dave, we got it.
We got it.
I'm going to keep asking it because you said it. The reason that people would smile, the reason people would say thank you is because you help them. Exactly like you just said. If I'm able to help other people. And that is literally, again, the most important part. And I continue to drive this home, and this continues to be the underlying answer that every person answers when it comes to what a successful day looks like.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about the money. Nobody talks about the transactions. Nobody talks about winning the lottery. People talk about the smiles, the thank yous, the helping, the giving back, the being there for others. So for every single person tuned in, please, again, yes. And I know you're going to repeat my words right now as I say them. You're going to echo what I'm saying, but I'm trying to drive this home to you. Your success is not based on how much money you made. It's based on how you help other people. That's a good, successful day. So great answer there.
Love that.
So,
Love that.
yeah, well, you know what? It's been a common theme. It's certainly my favorite question on the show, because I love to hear from so many different people what they define as success. And there's not a person yet who has talked about money.
Yeah.
And for the books you read and the people you listen to and the successful individuals out there and the uber successful, it's not about money.
No,
it's not.
And that's, again, that's possibly the result of,
right,
lots of good days, hopefully.
Sure. Yeah.
And some tough days.
Sure. It's nice to make money. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. we got to work for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the work part, right? That's the work part. That's cool. It's a good question.
So Steph, what last words, tips, anything that you can share with anybody who's here, tuned in live or the recording, to help them get out there and help them really just, grow their mindset and build that mind share to grow their business? What last words or tips can you share with anybody?
I would say that, for real estate and life, it's all about the journey. And it's about what you learn along the way and hopefully what you can share with others from your experience. Like, to me, this is a highlight for me to be able to talk to someone like you and, who values, my journey in this industry. Because I appreciate that. I feel like that if I can bring some value, then that's a good thing. So I want to thank you for having me in session 156.
Well, you certainly delivered a ton of value today. The internet connections, I have no idea what happened there, but no, seriously, it was a very, very, very awesome catching up with you. If anybody wants to talk to you, call you, get in touch with you, where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram at Stefani. I'm on Facebook, Stefani Konidis. I'm in Oakville. You can find me here. But yeah, at Stefani is where most people seem to find me these days, on Instagram.
Well, and everybody, I encourage you guys, definitely reach out prior to connecting. Obviously, you and I had seen each other, kind of lightheartedly spoken to each other amongst bigger groups. Highly recommended that we connect. We did connect and got into a phone conversation that was just spectacular, which led us into today. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Mindshare podcast. And I thank you sincerely for making the time today.
Thank you so much, David. It was my pleasure.
You're either listening to this on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Amazon, Stitcher, or Spotify. Or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you're on my site, make sure to download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle for Realtors. This is a 31-page ebook packed with a ton of tips and tricks for you. Plus, there's a ready-to-go 90-day social media content calendar to help you build more mind share so that you can get more market share. And while you're there, I'm going to tell you right now, we've also got the goal-setting guide, which is going to help you plan for your entire year of 2022, and it is completely free. So make sure you download both of those. And of course, if you want to talk about personalized one-to-one coaching to help you get to your next level, just get in touch with me. We'll set up a free consultation call, learn more about what you're looking to achieve and how I will help you do just that. Also, don't forget that our push to 100 is on, and you can have the chance to win a group coaching membership for 1 year, valued at over $500. So be sure, please, to go to iTunes, subscribe to the show, rate us, and leave a review. And if you haven't yet, connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. I want to once again thank Kits Keep in Touch Systems for sponsoring today's episode. If you haven't checked us out yet, just go to my site, mindshare101.com, and click on Marketing. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.